Hey you guys, welcome to Alex and Andy Live. It is Saturday, the 14th of May 2022. You're looking at a live view right now of Shanghai's famous Lujiazui, which is the financial district. Let me just remove that banner a little bit so you can really get a view there. Looks like an awesome evening tonight, but we are still stuck inside lockdown, unfortunately, over coronavirus fears. And that looks to be set to go on for a little while yet. Now, let's just have a quick look at what is coming up on today's show, Saturday, 14th May 2022. Obviously, we have all the new numbers for you. So there's the new numbers today, down on yesterday. And there has been one community infection, which is good news. And today's numbers represent a drop of around about 20% day on day over yesterday. Some really good news. And 108-year-old man, 108, who was infected with COVID-19 has been discharged from Shanghai's Pudong Hospital today after making a full recovery. So still going strong there. Really good news to hear. Parks across the city have adopted a location code, which is going to require residents and tourists to scan and register in order to gain access. Of course, that's going to happen after the city opens up again. So perhaps a sign of things to come. Half of Shanghai's major makeshift hospitals have been shut down thanks to a sharp decrease in the number of patients. In other news that is not to do with Shanghai's lockdown, but possibly to do with COVID-19, the 2023 Asian Cup football tournament will be relocated from China to a new host. Now, that news has come from the Asian Football Confederation, the AFC, as well as the tournament's local organizing committee here in China today. So that is, if you want to read into it, perhaps some news or some insight into the shape of China for a couple of years to come, maybe. I'm not sure. But anyway, I think I have my colleague Alex in the house after some internet connections. Alex, can you hear me? Oh, no. I think still a problem there with Alex's connection. So what I'll do is I will jump straight into our interview with our colleague Yang Jian, who is a reporter obviously for Shanghai Daily. Yang Jian, Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, clear.
Awesome. So cases today and over the past few days have been more or less what I would call yo-yoing. So the other day we saw about a 50% drop, then we went up about 45%. Yesterday we've come down 20%. I was wondering if you think maybe this means we can stop looking at the numbers, or what's going on there in your opinion?
Well, numbers are still important, I think, because we need to achieve the 3-day zero community transmission for the open up. And anyway, it is good to see the city's daily infection number is going down again. But more importantly, the number of infections in Yangpu district, which has become the new focus of the city, has also been largely reduced by 23% after the tripling increase yesterday. And it means the resurgence in Yangpu remain under control, and the district is screening out its remaining positive cases, mainly within the locked down areas and the quarantine. because no infection was found at community level in Yangpu both yesterday and today. And the Yangpu government has announced to launch daily PCR testing for all its citizens between Friday and Sunday, and everyone must stay at home. So if the number keeps falling tomorrow under the 3-day screening, the risk in Yangpu will be put out soon, and which will also bring down the city's total infection number, maybe to below 1,000 in the near future. But like the health commission official said today, risk of resurgence still exists, mainly at these old residential neighborhoods with shared bathrooms and kitchens, which is a common issue not only to Yangpu, but also other downtown areas like Huangpu, Jing'an, and Pudong. And today, the official asked these districts to firstly get a clear picture of the inhabitants at these old communities, and then conduct strict management and disinfection measures. And the residents there are also required to stagger to use the communal kitchens and the toilets. And another highlight of today's infection number is you mentioned the cities only have one community infection, but it was found in the precautionary area on the Chongming Island, which is a surprise because the island is among the first to basically achieve the zero community transmission. So maybe there are potential risks for further investigations, such as on the transport between the island and other parts of the city, as well as on the staff management, maybe of some state-owned companies on the island that have already restored operation. So basically, the overall trend is still positive despite some issues like the older communities. And the city's CDC official said the 3-area designation has effectively contained the spread of the virus because the number of citizens in the precautionary areas has more than tripled the total number of those in the locked down and the controlled areas. So the CDC official said today that what we citizens should do now is to firstly keep following the regulations of the 3-area designation. Secondly, cooperating with the epidemiological investigation and the PCR screening. And thirdly, well self-protection whenever going out. Andy.
Yeah, interesting updates there. But I another thing I noticed in the news today, and I mentioned before, is that I think around half of the city's makeshift hospitals have closed down. Now, is this also a good sign? Is it a sign that maybe the worst is behind us?
Yeah, of course, it's a good signal. Because there are nearly 200,000 beds at local makeshift hospitals during the peak of this pandemic, but currently there are only a total of 50,000 patients at these makeshift facilities. And besides, there are about 10,000 being discharged every day. So a lot have been closed and restored their original purposes, like exhibition centers, stadiums, apartment buildings, and also schools. And the most important information from the official today is over 95% of the makeshift hospitals at local schools have been dismantled, and with strict disinfection, cleaning, and risk evaluation. So, with the announcement from the executive vice mayor yesterday, some third grade students are expected to firstly return to the campus very soon. And this massive shutdown of makeshift hospital mainly has two meanings. And firstly, like you said, it is one of the key positive signals for the end of a pandemic, like we've experienced in Wuhan in 2020. And the pandemic ended shortly after the makeshift facilities began being closed. And today also the medical teams are also flying back home. So that is another good sign for the city's resurgence. And in Shanghai, the turning point of the pandemic appeared roughly the same time when the city's first makeshift hospital was shut down, which is in late last month. And secondly, with sufficient rooms and medical resources, the services at these remaining makeshift hospitals will also be largely improved. And a city official said today, he said the transfer reception and the discharge processes at the remaining makeshift hospitals will be further optimized. And for instance, he said family members will be allowed to live in the same area despite they maybe not being infected at the same time. And the senior patients will be discharged along with their family members or nursing staff to make sure they can be sent home safely. And also, study rooms have been prepared for students who must prepare for the college entrance exams in the makeshift hospitals. But the official also mentioned today that some of the makeshift hospitals will be kept for the normality COVID prevention and control because there are still risk of resurgence. Andy.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the update, Yang Jian. We will see you again, hopefully for some good news tomorrow. Thank you.
See you.
Okay, you guys, we have some internet problems with our good friend Alex. So at the moment, it's just Andy live with Shanghai Daily. So what I'm going to do is, I see a comment there from Mansana, who said the USA just celebrated their 1 millionth COVID death. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Yet they think they're qualified to criticize China's zero COVID policy. Good point. I think the reason I was having a little bit of a chuckle there is from the word celebrated, which some other people have picked up on in the comments. Spud says celebrated? Really? Stephen Riley says celebrated? And he said, yes, they celebrate by lowering the flag. Yeah, it is a terrible situation there in the States. Obviously, it is true. They notified the world of their 1 millionth COVID death, which is a terrible situation. So as I've said many times before, I don't know the right answer. I think fully opening up and letting it rip, as they say, leads obviously to this kind of thing, and also fully closing down like Shanghai is right now also leads to a lot of stress and troubles. So I don't think there is actually an easy way. And as I was saying the other day to my mum, actually, I've given up following all the research, because there's research you'll see that says anything. One day, people will say, there's research that Omicron is much less deadly. It's just like the flu. And it's like, okay. Then the next day, there'll be more research that comes out and says, it is not less deadly. Look at how many people have died, blah, blah, blah. So I think what I've done is just started to kind of stop following all that at the moment. I think at the moment, what we're concentrating on here, especially us in Shanghai, is just getting through. So yeah, here are those numbers that Yang Jian just mentioned. We had 194 confirmed symptomatic cases and 1,487 asymptomatic cases. And as I mentioned when we came in, that represents a drop of about 20%. So we are yo-yoing, going a bit up and down at the moment. But as Yang Jian just said before, it's still important to look at the numbers. The numbers are still significant. It's just that we maybe shouldn't place so much weight on the numbers every day. As you can see here, like I mentioned, a bit of a yo-yo. I think it's fair to call it a yo-yo. We fell quite sharply here for the 10th of May. That was that 50% drop we saw. Then the next day, it was more or less the same. Then we rose by about 45% yesterday for the day before. And now we've come down about 20 again. So, yeah, I mean, as Alex mentioned, back on April 1st, which you can see here on the graph, we were about, if I look at the graph here, I don't remember the exact numbers, but about 6,000 cases a day. So already we're doing much better. And I think we are, or we can say we're heading for the home stretch, which is good news. Here's that other graph we tend to look at every day, which is the cases found outside of quarantine and lockdown areas. As you can see, just one. So obviously we want to see that at zero. And Shanghai has 16 districts. If those 16 districts can achieve 0 cases for 3 days in a row, then like we saw yesterday, and I'll bring up those details in here, like we saw yesterday, that will mean 0 community transmission. This is one of the definitions we received yesterday from the government. So 3 consecutive days without a positive case at the community level will mean 0 community transmission, which will mean we can start looking for some more opening up, which would be a great thing. Obviously, a lot of people are waiting for that. But again, If we look at these numbers here, at least for all of Shanghai's 16 districts, when we still see a 1 here, that means somewhere has been a case outside of lockdown. And I think Yang Jian mentioned that that happened on Chongming Island, which before was seen as quite a safe area, if you could say that. So obviously, like he said, there are some areas we could look into what is happening there. So yeah, good information there. Another thing, Yang Jian, actually first, let's see, do we have any comments from you guys? You might be getting a bit bored with just me speaking. Let's see. Kevin James Ng said Yang Jian's doing a great job of reporting. I saw before somebody mentioned that Yang Jian cannot see the YouTube comments here coming through as we are getting his update. That is true. He can't see. So unfortunately, he won't be able to reply to you guys in that way. Montana said Adidas is damaged due to China market. I think, yeah, that's going to be the case, obviously, especially for Shanghai. It is a very important financial city, not just for China, but for the whole world. And as we've seen, a lot of transportation, imports and exports happen through the ports here. And of course, if that's slowed down in any way, which it definitely is by these lockdowns, which day 44 now, we're going to see not just damage to companies and markets in China, but also around the world. I think that is definitely the case. ZDJ asks, how is the weather today? Let me go and check. Sorry, oh yeah, that is now. More or less, 20 degrees Celsius, and that is 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Really nice weather today, which was awesome. So yeah, and other news that Yang Jian mentioned briefly before, he said that around half of the city-level makeshift hospitals have now been phased out, which he said is good news. And that is owing to what we see here on shine.cn, a sharp decrease in the number of COVID-19 patient admittances. So obviously, if you look at these numbers, it's obvious with the numbers going down, especially when you see when we were at the top here, we were averaging around 25,000 new cases a day. And remember, all of those need to head into central quarantine. So as you can imagine, the amount of people flowing into quarantine at that stage would have filled up those centres and did fill up those centres, as we saw. And those numbers have shot down. So of course, those locations are closing down, which is great news. And he also mentioned before that a lot of the out of Shanghai health workers that had come to help out have been leaving as well, which is also great news. But probably, as Alex would say, we won't be celebrating until we can head outside. Speaking of Alex, I think he may be back here after his internet problems. Let's see. Alex, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Oh, I think I can hear you. Awesome, you're back. I've just been filling them in on the news we had, and the half of the makeshift hospitals being shut down.
Right. With numbers going down, more people being released than admitted to these hospitals. We don't need as many of them. I suppose if we are unfortunate enough to experience a kind of a relapse here, for lack of a better term, then maybe they'll be reopened. But I think for now it's good to see that they're closing. Better to not need them than to need them, right?
Hey, Alex, I think your connection's still really bad. I think it's quite choppy. See if you can.
Hey, you can put me on the sideline. I'll be back in a minute.
See if you can try something else. Sorry, Alex.
It's okay.
Sorry, you guys. Let me know if you thought Alex's voice was choppy there. I just had a quick listen on the WeChat stream, and it was quite choppy, but let's see if it's fine. Oh yeah, someone said C3PO Alex. So yeah, Alex, your connection's still a bit bad there. So what I'll do is I'll keep chatting here and see if you can fix it. Otherwise, don't stress. We can have a shorter show without the banter. Where are we? Oh yeah, so Montana said I'm learning Kiwi accent from Andy. Yeah, you'll be hearing a bit of my voice today. unfortunately, with Alex with his connection problems. Andrea Matthews said, "I've been out to feed the homeless cats tonight. It's a very nice evening tonight, but bugs are back with the nice weather." Yeah, it's it's not give or take. You win some, you lose some, I guess is the term. You get the good, you got to take the bad with it. So yeah, with the nice weather, we will see those bugs start to come back. But Andrea, thank you so much for feeding those cats. It is really good to see. We have been worried about them here on this show. So yeah, awesome to see. Now, Claire, a fellow Kiwi, says, what happens if Shanghai numbers go down and then the rest of China goes up and then Shanghai goes back up? We will continually go back into lockdown. Yeah, I think that is pretty much the state of it. I guess as China keeps pursuing this COVID zero policy, we call it 动态 清零政策, means dynamic zero policy. That's all we can do, I guess, is keep locking down as soon as cases come back. And I think that is the debate that's going on at the moment. People are talking about how Omicron is so spreadable and how maybe, it's a lost cause. But at the moment, Beijing and China are still pushing forward with the zero COVID policy. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, basically, once Shanghai goes back to zero, we'll probably enter a state of shock, I guess, once we're free again. And I think the measures in place to protect the city from more outbreaks will be higher. So we may see a bit of a harder way of life, I guess, having to do COVID tests every 48 hours, show passes everywhere we go. And then if it comes back, it comes back. The city will have to lock down again. Let's see if Alex is working out now. Alex, you reckon it might be better? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So what happened is that I've been using my 5G data on my phone throughout the entire month that we're doing these shows, and I've used it all up, and now I have no more high-speed data left, and so that's why it was so bad. But I've called up China Mobile and bought some more high-speed data, so now it seems to be working again. And
it's working now, yeah. Awesome. So that's the problem. Yeah,
Andy, you're hanging for 20 minutes, and everyone, but here we are. I think we are back to working order. Anyway, yeah. So I did hear the last minute or so of what you're talking about, that comment. Yeah, it is a concern. It is a concern, right? I mean, it's an obvious concern. What happens if Shanghai gets to zero and then opens up again, and then we go right back around the ringer because we have contact with people in other places? And then, of course, the obvious question then becomes, when can we leave Shanghai again? Well, and so, yeah, it seems like there's potential for this to become a really, really deep rabbit hole. Let's hope that there are ways to get around that and sort of make sure that we don't end up in an endless cycle of locking down and opening up and locking down and opening up, because I don't think that's the plan. And I hope that's not where we end up, because that doesn't sound like much fun at all, nor productive.
Yeah, but I'm worried, Alex. I think that's the only way. If with Omicron we keep getting outbreaks, the only way will be if we're going for COVID zero to lock down again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we make sure everyone's vaccinated, right? And because, I mean, we can't keep locking down and opening up and locking down and opening up for 10 years, can we? We've got to find some sort of way to get through this. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing.
I'm just seeing in the Shanghai Yubao Shine WeChat stream right now, Jesse said, I can't deal with the constant threat of lockdown. And I think that is the feeling that a lot of people have right now here in Shanghai and also around China.
Well, yeah, it's the constant threat of lockdown, and also the constant threat of, if you do test positive, having to go to a quarantine facility. That's, even a bigger concern for me personally. I mean, lockdown I can deal with for a certain period of time, obviously. I mean, I haven't enjoyed lockdown, but I can't. I mean, it hasn't been abjectly horrible for me personally, but just the constant threat of having to go quarantine at a large scale quarantine facility. I mean, if you have to do it, you have to do it. But part of you is just, let's just do it and get it over with. But of course, that's not the right mindset to have, because that's a dangerous way to think. But at the same time, it's getting the constant axe swinging over your head is what really causes, at least for me, a lot of stress.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for me, I haven't had that much of a huge problem with the lockdown, but I do understand people's feeling. They feel a lot of people feel they don't have control of their lives anymore, and that is completely warranted, because there is a constant threat, or there will be a constant threat of locking down again. For me as well, I don't mind so much personally heading to the central quarantine site if I got COVID myself. But again, as we've talked about many times on the show before, we both have pets at home. I've got 2 cats, and we still don't have a really solid answer on what would happen there. So that's another worry, Alex.
Yeah.
Okay, I think Alex has gone choppy there again. We're figuring this out. Alex, when you're back, let me know. What I might do, you guys, now is Jacqueline on the WeChat group just said no room for doom and gloom here. I agree. So let's have a bit of a nicer. Oh, Alex is back. Alex, let's have. I'm going to play a nice video now because people don't want any more doom and gloom. What do you reckon? Oh, you're on mute, Alex.
Sorry, I did it again. I also am not, as I've been saying, no time for doom and gloom. I agree. We should, even after 2 minutes of it, it's enough for me. It's okay we have to face sort of the situation that we're in, but at the same time, there's no need to be overly pessimistic about it. Let's see what we've got coming up next.
Yeah. Okay. So coming up next, in order to lift everyone's spirits, we have a haircut concerto. A compound in Changning district here in Shanghai has been enjoying live violin performances by a resident who obviously can play the violin, as they're getting their hair cut by a resident who can cut people's hair. So our reporter Minji interviewed the violinist today, and we have a bit of a video here which I'll play, and then we'll come back and have a chat. So let's check that out. Sounds nice. Somebody mentioned just before that the haircut violin is a weird combination. What do you reckon, Alex?
Yeah, it's not something that you would expect, but a lot of things have been combined that you might not expect during this situation. I think that's good. It's 2 things that I think a lot of people are lacking. Number one is haircuts, right? Obviously, it's tough to get a haircut right now, and then the other one is just live music. There hasn't been live music shows really going on for quite a long time, and so it is cool to see that.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really nice. Kim said this must be expensive. Actually, thankfully, it's probably one of the only times you'll get a violin performance and a haircut, and I think it's probably just free, although they may be paying the hairdresser. But I think you can see to the side of the violinist, you can't see now, but she has a cell phone setups. So I think she's probably live streaming at the same time. So that'll be what she's getting for it. It's a cool situation. She'll get some views for it.
Yep. Yeah. I'm not sure how it's being filmed, if that's a drone or what that is, but yeah, definitely. I think that's probably
Looks awesome. So yeah, that is hopefully raise your spirits. But I do want to read a comment on our Shanghai Rubao WeChat page by Jesse, because somebody said there's no room for doom and gloom here. But then Jesse replied, toxic positivity isn't healthy either, which I agree as well. Alex, what do you reckon?
I do as well. We have seen a few examples of both sides of that. I think, by and large, I think that people, at least in the social media circles that I sort of find myself in, are a bit more negative than positive. But I do agree that toxic positivity, quote unquote, that's a term that I never heard until this particular incident began. But I also think that it's not helpful. I think that what's helpful is to look at what's actually happening, analyze it using a rational point of view, and try and figure out what's best for you and for the people that and within the circumstances that you're presented with. I agree with both of those sentiments that were expressed there.
Yeah, very true. Hey, somebody mentioned what the song's called. The name of the song is called 我爱你中国, which means I love you, China. Thank you for that, Sakiyama Saudi. So if you want to check out the song she was playing on violin, you can search 我爱你中国. Awesome stuff. Travel with Jean in China said his last live show was a ballet in February. I think he's in Henan province, so probably, no, I'm not sure actually. Maybe the live performances aren't open there yet, but I know the lockdown's over. So yeah, hopefully you can head along to a show soon up there, Jean.
Well, I know that live performances by and large have been much less frequent since the beginning of COVID, even though, obviously in 2012, most of 2020 and then all of 2021, more or less, we were open. There were some live shows, but it wasn't quite as fruitful and as frequent as it was pre-pandemic.
Right.
Shanghai used to have all kind of great live shows, music shows, comedy shows, all kind of interesting stuff of all different stripes. But, since COVID started, and especially obviously now, that's really been curtailed a lot. Did you talk about the AFC, the Asian Football Confederation, and the Asian Cup thing?
No, I was going to bring that up now, actually, Alex, because you're the guy to speak with.
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll bring that. Where is it? There we go. So the 2023 Asian Cup tournament has been relocated. So China was obviously going to be the host, and now they've kind of pulled back. What can you read into that, Alex, or what have you read into that?
Well, first, obviously we haven't had proper live football matches, football, soccer. I mean, I'm American, I can call it soccer, but I usually we'll refer to it as football. We haven't had live football matches or sporting matches of any kind since 2019. Now, there were some matches hosted in 2020 and 2021 in bubbles, but the last time, for example, Shanghai here plays at Hongkou Football Stadium here in Shanghai, and the last time that we were able to actually see a live match from that stadium was in December of 2019, before the coronavirus pandemic even began. And so the 2023 Asian Cup, was planned on being hosted in China, but the CFA, the Chinese Football Association, has said to the organizing body, the Asian Football Confederation, the AFC, that's sort of the football governing body for all of Asia, that they couldn't guarantee a fully open, normal style of tournament given what's the situation in China right now. And so it's really unfortunate that they're going to have to move it to a different country. Hopefully China can host it again sometime in the future. Maybe they can switch years from what with another country. That would be good. But yeah, it's honestly, as a football / soccer fan, it's pretty. It's not. It doesn't make me feel good to see that. It doesn't portend good things, I think, for the rest of us football fans in China, or at least fans of Chinese football and football in Asia as a whole. Looking forward. So it's disappointing, but if it had to be done, it had to be done, I guess.
Yeah. So obviously I'm not a sport person, and basically you just gave a really good roundup. But I want to look at it from a different angle now. I saw someone on Twitter mention today that this could be a sign that China may not be looking to fully open to the world even in 2023. Do you think there's much we can read into that?
Well, I hope that that's not what this means. I just think with a huge event like this, the Asian Football Confederation has to plan it out in advance. They need guarantees of certain things. It's a year from now, but they can't have things up in the air and sort of hanging in the balance that they're not sure about. It's like any large international event, it needs to be fully planned out months and months and months in advance. And if China cannot. The wording I believe was they said we cannot guarantee that it'll be open by that time. So then they have to just say, okay, well, sorry, but we have to make other plans for now, and then maybe you can host it another time. And I'm pretty sure that's probably the kind of arrangement that's been made between China, the Chinese football governing body, and then the one for all of Asia as a whole, because they can't just have it hanging in the balance. They have to know.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Actually, no, it's a good point, because obviously these are huge events, and like you said, you need everything in place. I do have the statement in front of me right now. I'll just read it out. They said, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Chinese Organizing Committee cannot pledge at this moment to hold next year's Asian Cup competition under a fully open model. After negotiations between the AFC, the Chinese Football Association, and the local Organizing Committee, a joint decision has been made to remove the 2023 Asian Cup from China to a new host, which will be confirmed soon. So yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like they wanted a fully open model, which of course that could be what it's hinging on. They can't guarantee.
I think that's exactly what it's hinging on. I think a lot of countries around the world have decided that they are finished with the pandemic,
right.
And they are choosing to handle it in a different way than China is. And so they I think that they expect that this tournament coming up next year will be held in a fully open way. And if China can't do that, then they're just going to say, we're going to do it somewhere else. And, it's the AFC's decision to do that. I think, again, as a fan, somebody who has watched Chinese Super League football for a number of years, it really is. Again, look, soccer or football is not the most important thing that we should be worrying about during this pandemic and lockdown, obviously. But it is one thing that's been really, really suffering. And football in China needs all the help it can get. It was doing really pretty well before COVID. The club teams were getting interesting, signing a lot of players, and now it's really this has really had a huge negative impact on the Chinese Super League and football in China. And so I really hope that, as a fan of it, I hope that it can rebound and get to where we want it to be in the future at some point.
Yeah, and you made an important point there, but I do want to add, you said football is not the most important thing, but I think it is still, even as someone who's not a fan of sport, it's still a very important thing. Sport, entertainment, these kind of things are there to entertain us, to keep us busy. And so I think even though there are what you might call more important things going on, it is still important to get back these kind of entertainment and sports and culture and arts running again. So I hope, we can see some improvements there, but obviously it's not going to be in time for the AFC Asian Cup in 2023.
Right. Unfortunately, that appears to be the case. So hopefully we'll at least be able to watch it wherever it is, because it is something that I do pay attention to. And then maybe at some point in the future, it can return to China and we can host it here. And then maybe we can go to some of the games. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw before as well, Alex, that the Hangzhou Asian Games have also been delayed.
Right.
That is another event we were going to be heading to this year. And also Shanghai's World Skills Games, which has been in the pipelines for, I think, 2 to 3 years now. That has also been delayed again and again and again. So, obviously, as we saw with that statement from the organizing committee, people, international players and participants are really wanting a fully open model. They're not really keen on coming into a COVID bubble in any way. People see it as a bit of a hassle, maybe. People see it as dated, and especially with COVID as the only country, China as the only country left in the world following COVID zero, they might just see it as a bit dated.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that I think that they probably respect China's decision to do what it's doing as far as the fight against COVID, but they're also saying, we're doing it a different way, and the majority of our countries involved in the AFC, which again is the Asian Football Confederation. It's like in Europe you have UEFA, right, which governs European football. In Asia, that's the AFC, and so they kind of. I guess the majority of the countries have said, well, hey guys, like good luck, but if we're going to do it this way, we're just going to have to put it somewhere else this time, and hopefully it can come back to China a different time. So it's unfortunate, but it just seems to be the agreement that they've reached.
Yeah, and fair enough. It's all about negotiation, like we saw with the Emma's video the other day. The parties need to negotiate, and that's what they've come to. So yeah, thanks for filling us in on that, Alex. Good information there on the Asian Cup. Now I'm going to read some comments, because before we mentioned toxic positivity,
Okay.
which seems to have confused a few people. Andrea Matthews says, "What is toxic positivity? Sounds a silly term. Sorry to who mentioned that, but positivity can't be toxic. Maybe annoying, but can't be toxic." And then somebody added, "Optimistic is a better term. Often toxic positivity ignores and does not acknowledge issues." But then the last comment I want to read on this issue is kind of what I agree with. When it's too positive, it becomes toxic. And I think that's the point. People feel maybe it's a little over the top when we're in a situation like the lockdown here in Shanghai, for example. People are suffering, people are frustrated, people are peed off. So if you're constantly pushing positivity, it can grate on people, Alex.
Yes, I think that's right. I think that, I think it's important in a tough situation to stay optimistic, and also to focus on positive aspects of it, be that whether the situation seems to be improving or whether something good happened. I see a lot of toxic negativity as well, where people are saying, if anybody says anything good about anyone that's involved in this in any way, then they're lying, and it's not. That's also not true. It's exaggerated negativity. Right. I think exaggerated positivity, pretending like this is the best time ever, would also be an example of quote unquote toxic positivity, because it would be ignoring the fact that that a lot of people are not having a very good time, and there are a lot of issues obviously at play here. And so pretending like this is 100% awesome would be an example of, I guess, the toxic positivity that's being referred to here. So yeah, you gotta find a good balance.
Yeah, and speaking of balance, that is something we try to find here on this show. So we will share with you some awesome stuff, some nice touching moments from Shanghai, like that haircut violin video from before. But we're also quite honest and brutal when it comes to talking about the negative aspects as well. We're not shy of criticizing or bringing things to the light. So we hope that's why you guys are watching. But speaking of positivity, I do want to play another video that we had here. Actually, wait a minute. I'm not sure if it is necessarily a positive one.
Yeah,
anyway, it's about...
Go ahead, you say.
You go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just saying this one is about different nucleic acid PCR testing sites, and then also what I think is going to be referred to in the future as quote unquote dynamic health codes. I guess we like the word dynamic during this situation, I suppose. And I guess dynamic is sort of an encouraging word to be using, because it means that it might be subject to change given the situation. And I think we need to be versatile in our response to this, and not be too, one size fits all, 一刀切 with all this kind of thing. I think it needs to be a little bit more versatile and, adapt to the circumstances. But anyway, so it appears that these health codes will be referred to as dynamic health codes, which basically is going to be something that you're going to need to scan at the entrance to many places, parks, and I don't know how widespread it is, but I imagine it'll be pretty widespread once we do get out of lockdown, that you'll have to have regular PCR tests. And then you'll have a code that on your phone that shows your health situation, close contact or not, last PCR test, and then you'll have to scan that to get into different venues. And I'm not sure how long that'll last. Obviously, there's no way to predict that, but it seems to be the future that we're heading for. Yeah,
for sure. Hey, let's check out that video. But first, I want to ask you, Alex, and also our viewers, what do you think of our new logo and background? I'm
a fan of it. I like the color. I think it's a good color. Nice. What do you call that? Teal or turquoise or aqua? I'm not really sure. All those.
Can you see in the back how it's got like both our names, but then it sort of becomes the other name by the bottom?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's pretty cool.
Let me show you. It's actually the names. The names are really big, but then once we go into the double screen mode, it's fancy. It's like Alex.
Situation. Yeah, I like it. Cool.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to play the video. Then we'll come back for some more. We'll come back for some more toxic positivity right after this.
All right.
我们自己觉得挺方便，差不多人不多的话就20分钟左右就可以了。
那么平时的我们开放时间一般是每天的11点到下午2点，那么每天覆盖的人群大概要400到600人左右。
场所码这一块的话，主要是针对进入卖场的人员进行一个登记，包括后续的一些流到。
那么通过这些布点，我们来第一时间做到早发现早处理这样的话为今后尽快的一个加快这个复工复产然后恢复到正常的生活秩序提供一个有力的支撑。
So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't call that positivity in any way. I think it's a bit of a tiring look into what our future is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, look, that seeing that doesn't fill me with joy. Obviously, having to scan and register and log into every single place you go seems like, it seems like what it seems like. It doesn't seem like something that is awesome, but at the same time, I think that they're doing it, to try and make sure we don't have to go back into continuous lockdowns. And so I guess, if I'm looking at the positive aspect of it, at least it might be able to keep us out of going to places rather than having to continuously lock down, hopefully. But it does appear that is what it's going to be, what the situation is going to look like once we are allowed out of lockdown and the city does at least partially open up again. It seems like, for just a record of who's been where so they can tell any sort of close contact situation or anything like that.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm ready for it. Like I mentioned last night, it's kind of, we've been in the lead up to this lockdown. The citywide lockdown began technically on April 1st.
Right.
And before that, we were doing, like we've said many times, COVID tests every 48 hours. So I'm ready for it. And I think if we have that dynamic code that we just showed on the video before, no, did we show a video of it? No, we talked about it. If we have the dynamic code, it's easy to use, then I'm happy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that's going to be a thing. We're going to have to be jumping through a lot of hoops here, even after we get out of here. It's going places and doing regular things with our normal efficiency and ease is going to be is not really going to be available. We're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops to do even some simple things. Hopefully, those hoops are large enough that we can get through them without contorting our entire lives into knots. We can just get through them and do it. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm hopeful for.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Hey, we have a comment here from Travel with John. He says, Alex and Andy could be called AA batteries to give everyone a daily recharge. Hee hee. But I want to add, John, it's actually not, those aren't called AA in China. They're called Wuhao, number 5.
Wuhao. Yeah, true.
So I know what you mean. People, our audience might be a bit confused. No, actually, maybe our audience is Chinese. I don't know. What do you reckon, Alex?
I don't know. Yeah. So what is it? So it's Wuhao is AA, and then is AAA Qi Hao? Is it Jiu Hao?
I think it's Qi Hao.
Qi Hao, and
let me see.
San Hao would be your what? C or A? I don't know. I actually don't use batteries very often anymore. When was the last time you all went to the store to buy actual physical batteries? Right?
Me all the time.
You do? For what?
Remotes and everything. These are called Qi Hao. Like AAA is called Qi Hao.
I guess remotes for air conditioners. I think that's the only time I use batteries because I don't really use my television.
I don't either. Yeah,
and I don't have anything. What else do I have? Yeah, not a lot of battery usage for me, but just rechargeable batteries, right? Like laptops and phones and things.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, no, that's true. But I do have them I have 2 aircon units in my place, so I'm going through the batteries quite often. And also I have one of those lamps that you can change the colors and the intensity and stuff with the remote. So that takes batteries as well.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that's about it. Let me see my notes here. I don't think we have anything more. Let me see if the producer has been yelling at us. No, he seems fine. He seems happy. So I reckon that's about it. Do you have anything else you want to chat about today?
No, I've gotten my so I used up all my high-speed data, but I've purchased more and changed my plan for next month. So hopefully, obviously, the lockdown will be over by next month. But just in case it's not, I think I will be good to go for tomorrow's show. So sorry, Andy, to leave and everyone to leave you hanging for the first 20 minutes, but I think we figured out the problem.
Oh, good. I just blabbed and blabbed and blabbed. I don't know if you saw, Alex, but some people commented that they're learning a New Zealand accent from me. So I guess they got extra training today.
Me too. Me and that, it's you and that ghost chips thing or whatever.
Oh, someone's banging on my door. So what I'm going to do is go check it. And we'll see you guys same place, same time, same place tomorrow. See you, Alex.
Tomorrow, 30. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 拜。